Welcome. I'm Mike Nye.
And I'm Tarran Merlo from the Hail and Well Met podcasts.
And I'm Oleksii Telander from the Ostium Network. And welcome to our Tea-Cast. While there is tea, there is hope. Welcome to another episode of While There Is Tea, There Is Hope. This is episode 5 for all the tea in for all the China in tea. Another pun for you. With me, I've got our whole group here together. So, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. We're currently in our third day of new lockdown, which is, been okay, been good and bad. It is what it is. But yeah, it's a lovely day outside. I can't really go out there and do much, but we're going okay. We're going okay. How are you?
Hopefully, by the time this episode airs, this will just be a distant memory.
Yeah, let's
hope so. And we have Tarran here too. How are you doing, Tarran?
Morning, guys. Very good, very good. Same lockdown with Mike there. Not together, unfortunately. That would be fun, but not allowed to interact with people. So in isolation with my family. Spent some time out the backyard this morning, listening to kids scream and run and play, which is always good. But now inside, having a nice cup of tea and enjoying a bit of a chat with you guys.
Perfect segue as we begin every episode. What are you drinking, Tarran?
This morning I have the result of a trip down south from many months ago. It is a white peony tea from Seven Seas Tea down in dwelling up Margaret River sort of way. So that's about 3-ish hour, depending on how fast you drive, trip southeast of Perth, which is sort of a more a wetter area of our state. So a bit more water and a bit more nice scenery around the place. So it is an imported tea, but it is an organically imported tea from China. A white peony. So it's a white tea, which is at that processing queue. It's the least processed of the teas. And it's the top, it's the bud and the first 2 leaves from the tip of the tea bush is what they use to make that this white peony tea. So it's very light, it's very flowery, not in a bread flowery, but in a flower flowery. Very tasty, very very subtle, very light.
Good episode.
Tarran starts talking about bread.
Mm-hmm. Yeast teas, all those. I'm drinking a very boring but delicious peppermint iced tea from one of our local shops, Trader Joe's. Just the peppermint tea, a few bags boiled in hot water, and then cold water added, and then throw it in the fridge for a few days, and very nice and refreshing.
And I am drinking. I have
Mike.
No idea how to pronounce this, so I apologize to everyone who I'm about to offend. But it's one of the teas that you sent us over, Alex, which is a I think it's a...
Oh, right.
Okay, here I go. Vangio. I don't know. It's Vangeoi according to the label that you put on there. And it's a Pico. It's a black tea. So Pico is basically young leaves. And I gotta say, I'm drinking it black, and it is super smooth, like real good. I'm digging it a lot. There was only small amounts in the bag, so I'm assuming that it is very expensive, and I can definitely taste that. So, yeah, thank you for sending that across. Where did you get that one
You're
from?
welcome. What I have to check. I think it was from one of our little tea break episodes. I think it was from one of those people that I got. They sent me some samples, and it was the one I divided up to try.
Nice.
I think I'll have to check. So what's the actual flavor of it?
I mean, it tastes like a black tea. It's very mild, It's see, I always stumble when people ask me to describe flavors because I'm really bad at it. And like usually when people ask me, when I'm drinking a wine or a whiskey, what do you taste in it? And I mean, I can usually get like one or two things, but I really struggle. I sort of know what I
What are
like.
the notes?
So with this tea, I mean, it tastes like a black tea. However, usually if you're making a black tea, quite often on the finish, how sometimes you get that bitterness or that quite an overwhelming. I don't know how to describe the flavor. It's kind of like bitter and sour. It's like that black tea oversteeped.
Almost like a strong tang.
Yeah.
At
So
the end.
this
Yeah.
has only the smallest hint of that. So it's got like all the delicious black tea flavor, but with no sort of tang at the end, which makes it super smooth and easy to drink. That's about as good as I can do you. Yeah.
So have either of you guys started doing our I sent us all around the Google Forms to start putting in some metrics and some measurements of how we rate all of our teas that we've been trying. Have either of you guys had a chance to start doing that yet?
No.
Not yet. I was waiting for you to start.
Well, I was going to say this. I'm impressed enough with this this white peony that I think I'm going to actually, after we finish up recording today, I'm going to load the form up and I'm going to actually do this one because it's nice, it's impressive, it's subtle. So, and I need better words than that to describe it.
Good. Well, for everyone listening to this episode, once you're done listening, you can go check the website, t-cast.com, and find out the review. And hopefully we'll have a bunch more up there. I think it'll be good to have a nice variety on there of just, a lot of the basic classic teas that you get in most supermarkets, and then to have a lot of the nicer teas we've been enjoying too, and just kind of see the range. And
I think that's a good point as well, because a lot of the time you see these sorts of, well, I don't know about you guys, but doing some research and looking and hunting for new teas to try and to taste, there's, you get past the generic store-bought brands that that we all know and love. And instantly you're into this realm of these unique, sourced once, never to be found again sort of blends, which are fine, but but for everyday drinking, you're sort of reluctant to spend the 20 minutes it takes to properly do a nice cup of tea and enjoy it and relax and enjoy it. So I think part of what I was trying to or wanting to do with these reviews of teas was to pop down to the local supermarket and pick up one of each of the generic brands off the shelf and do some actual comparisons of these things using the same metrics that we do for the fancy things, just to be able to compare them and go, hey, look, this isn't that bad. For what is a cheap off the shelf cup of tea, it's pretty good. Yeah,
I'd like to try, because I know with my one that's closest to me, they're a lot more local based shop with a lot of local resources and all this stuff, and their tea section is huge, so it'd be fun to do. They're pricey, but over time I can get one of each Earl Grey sort of thing, and then compare and contrast and see which one works and which one doesn't for me. A
little bit of a segue there, sorry.
No, it was a good one. All right, so we're going to start with our history bit, continuing on from our last heavy episode, and we're moving into Japan, with tea entering Japan. But still way back in history. So, around the early 9th century, a Japanese Buddhist monk, Saicho, is credited with introducing tea to Japan. While studying in China, Saicho discovered tea and brought back seeds to grow at his monastery. Over time, other monks followed suit, and soon small tea plantations sprouted up at secluded monasteries. However, due to the isolation of these plantations, tea's popularity in Japan did not blossom, good word choice, until the 13th century. The most popular method of preparing tea involved grinding the delicate green tea leaves into a fine powder using a stone mill. This powder, called matcha in Japan, was a precursor to the traditional Japanese tea ceremony, chanoyu, and it was popularized by the Zen monk Aisai Matcha is prepared with bamboo whisks, chasen, and served in handcrafted bowls, chawan. I actually haven't tried matcha. I've got some, which I do need to try. Have you guys had matcha?
Yep, I have had matcha lots of times, and yeah, it's quite nice. It's very nice, actually.
That's it. Mike, what's nice about it, and how do you do it?
Well, I mean, so when you say matcha, I've tried the green matcha powder, right? So, which is basically, you stretch the milk a little bit so that it's, nice and warm, and there's a little
By
bit of foam on
contrast, I've
top,
had
and
matcha
then
a
they
few
mix
times, and
into
I
that
do not
milk
like
the matcha powder. So you basically get this. It kind of looks like a warm spearmint milk with a coffee froth on top.
That made me think of warm toothpaste, but I'm guessing it's not that.
Well, that's what it looks like. It doesn't taste like that at all. It tastes like, well, green tea mixed with milk, to be honest. Some of the powder, I think, is sweetened because depending on where you go, certain coffee shops that we have locally, I don't know, I've probably already spoken about this, so excuse this, listeners, if I'm repeating old ground, but basically they serve it here. It's called a green tea latte or a matcha latte, or a matcha green tea latte. So you can basically get that at a coffee shop, and yeah, it looks kind of gross, but it tastes really good if you like green tea.
So it's something you would definitely have with milk then, and not with hot water.
Oh, definitely with milk. Well, when you're making the green tea powder, so I've always had it with milk. Like at the coffee shop, they've never said how do you want it. It's always come out, with milk.
And that's how I've seen it too. So that's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a coffee machine, apparently what you can do is you can sort of whisk up some milk in a saucepan until it's sort of nice and warm and stretched, and then mix the powder.
Or I'll do how I do my coffee milk, whereas I stick it in the microwave for a minute and a half, and then
and then give it a vigorous stirring to make it frothy. Yeah, I've done that as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when it drops the shot in it, it actually makes a bit of foam itself, so it tends to work.
Yeah, I mean, you can get. My mom's got one of these things. It's like a little battery-powered whisking thing. It's like a little motor with a little whisk.
Frother.
Yeah, frother. That's right. So yeah, I guess you could use one of those as well. Yep. But yeah, they're really good. You even get people doing the latte art.
Tarran. So Tarran is the polar opposite from you on the matcha. What don't you like about it, Tarran?
Yeah. Well, I think like most things in life, a lot of things are an acquired taste, and when you try something once and you don't like it, you should really go back and give it another shot, because as I keep telling my kids, who knows, you might like it. Give it a shot, give it a try. And I don't take my own advice with any matcha, and I think it might have just had a bad batch or something like that. And maybe my head was expecting spearmint milkshake and got green tea and went, that's not right. I don't.
Was that a pun you were doing there, by the way? I would say you don't take matcha your advice, is what you were saying with this matcha.
But no, it's something I should try again. As I said, I've only had it once or twice, mainly because it's never really appealed to me. But again, this was pre tea cast, right? So hey, I'm drinking a lot of teas now that I would never have considered, before. So
maybe we need a matcha tea break episode too, where we all try it and say, or
a matcha off
and just puns flying everywhere. Yeah,
we can call that episode "Matcha Ado About Nothing."
Tarran, you said you had something about the growing of matcha, right?
Yeah, because it's different to how we normally do other green teas. Because what they normally the Camellia sinensis, and I'm not sure if you guys are much of a green tea thumbs. Sorry, that was terrible. The Camellia sinensis plant it's a fairly delicate plant. You don't want it exposed to hot heats and heaps of sun. But it absolutely, like a lot of plants, needs sunlight to grow and photosynthesize.
Is that opposed to cold heats, Tarran?
It's dry heat or warm heat, or there's other types of heat as opposed to just hot heat. Shush.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
So, like the two Camellia sinensis that I have at the front of my house, I mean, we get quite warm heat, quite warm summers in WA, in Australia here. Middle of summer, it'll get up to 45 degrees. So, and I've had these two plants over summer this year. So I tried to pick a spot that wouldn't get as much direct sun all day because it will burn and singe them. The other trick is and this is generic for all camellia plants, they tend to not enjoy huge amounts of wind because while they are quite pliable and flexible and they can take quite a bit, hot wind they don't tend to enjoy too well. It scorches them and causes them to go brittle and snap. And I actually did have one of the branches of the Camellia sinensis plant break off, which I was really, really upset about because they're only tiny little plants currently, and they've only got two main branches. So for one of them to snap off, it's kind of, it's quite a huge hit for it. But normally,
I'd make a Trump joke here about the hot wind, but I'm just not going to.
I was going to say, Tarran, can you use a striking compound and will it grow from a cutting? Do you know?
They normally will, but you've got to get onto them. You've pretty much got to. I can go into a whole new episode just about stripping back camellia branches and wrapping them to grow them from cuttings. But unfortunately, I got to that one too late. I didn't realize it had broken off until it had dried up.
Oh, that's a shame.
Because it was still semi-attached. So I lost that one, but that's okay. Cause where I guess I was getting at is normally they will leave when growing tea, it will have a lot of sun exposure. With a matcha, it will be grown in shade for 3 to 4 weeks before harvest. So it will be fully shaded, which apparently gives it a much softer.
Please, a matcha softer.
I'm missing all of these. I'm kicking myself. Which when it comes time to then harvesting and stripping it, they turn around and go and put all of the plant into, so the stems and the veins. When I say all the plant, and obviously not the plant itself, but they'll cut it. And unlike normal green tea where they'll pluck each leaf type and according it to class, they'll then do it as per our grading scale that we have talked about in the past. With a matcha or with a leaf aimed at being a matcha, they will take the stems and the veins and put it all through, and they'll remove the stems and veins as they go through the whole process, but it's processed very differently, and then it's powdered. Now, the whole point of growing it in the shade, it produces more.
It's a matcha different process to your usual tea. Then.
It's very, very, much a different process. It causes it to get more theanine and caffeine. So it's much higher in caffeine.
Sorry, was that a Lord of the Rings character you said there?
Theanine, yeah, he's brother to Boromir, and he doesn't die as much.
Oh, okay.
Theanine, if you are interested, it's one of the amino acids that is found in a lot of plant species. But it's one of the main benefits of green tea. Which is a nice one to have. But matcha is much higher in it, simply because it's shade grown for those last 3 to 4 weeks. So they then get it all, they crush it, and they powder it. They turn it into a powder. So you get this really fine powder in the same. Have you ever looked at dry paints? So your powdered paints that you then add water to turn into it's that kind of consistency of powder.
Yeah, it looks very chalky to me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So, and it's actually where we can get things like have you seen green tea ice cream or noodles or you name it?
Mm-hmm.
It will be this matcha powder that they use to color and flavor it, and it gives that sort of awkward baby vomit style green color. Really attractive. The one that really gets you going. Oh, that looks.
It's very interesting because compared to your other teas, where you steep water and stuff through the leaves and then you get rid of the leaves, here you're just throwing it in there and it
dissolves
and becomes part of the whole thing, which is very interesting and different. Tea.
So it's very, very different to how we normally consume our tea. And I think for me, that's why I probably haven't been too enamored with it, because difference is scary and scary is not good.
Except until now with the tea cast, and now you're broadening your tea horizons.
Now I'm willing to give it a shot.
Going on a matcha great and adventurous voyage. Mike, is it It always looks to me like it's going to be bitter. I still haven't tried it, but I will try it. But is it bitter?
I've never had it where it's been bitter. But I don't know whether they sweeten it, whether it's like pre-sweetened or not. So all of the powders that I've tried have been very drinkable, not bitter at all. So you get a very quite a strong green tea flavor, but no bitterness. In fact, sometimes it's quite sweet.
Well, I think we should do a matcha tea break episode at some point, and we'll be doing it together and see what we think.
Matcha has a very interesting, tangent that we could go down.
And it'd be interesting to see too, because we'll be doing different matchas from where we are and stuff too, and to see if there's any differences within that, or if it's all kind of the same too and stuff. So stay tuned for a matcha future episode.
I won't give away the fact that there are very different matchas. There's matcha different teas.
Moving on to our next section, a modern tea custom emerges. It was not until the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, that tea was prepared by steeping the whole leaves in water, like it is today. Instead of compressing tea leaves into bricks or grinding them in a stone mill, the tea leaves were dried, rolled, and then heated in ironworks to stop the oxidation process. The brewing process simply involves steeping the tea leaves in hot water without the need for a whisk. A Chinese monk brought this new rolled tea with him during his travels to Japan in the 17th century. Shortly thereafter, a tea merchant in Kyoto by the name of Soen Nagatani invented a new Japanese method of steaming, drying, and rolling green tea during the 18th century. This process and type of tea became known as sencha and is now a mainstay in Japanese tea culture. I have definitely started to enjoy sencha now.
Yeah, I quite like sencha. Are you having the one that has the baked rice?
I have done that one, yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that one. It's very savory and delicious.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I haven't had too much of it, and you sent that about a year ago now, I think, maybe, or whatever you said that. Some of the rice has popped, so there's little bits of popcorn.
Oh, okay.
Popped rice.
Rice, yeah.
Probably with the heat, which is kind of funny. The sencha I got was from, again, the same local shop where I got the peppermint from, and it was just a box of, and I was like, oh, sencha, good, I know what that is, I'm going to try some of that. So I don't know if there's rice actually in it, because it's in a tea bag, but it's been really nice just to steep, but you can't really steep it too strong, it feels like, with this one at least. But I've been really enjoying it with meals, especially if I'm doing Asian dishes or whatever, just to have a nice warm cup of sencha on the side, drinking along with the delicious food I'm eating.
So can I take a couple of centuries back in between those two time frames that you were talking about?
A couple of centuries, yes.
Couple of centuries. So it was actually sort of during that Ming Dynasty period, but sort of 14th century. I was doing some reading, and did you know that there were tea competitions during that time frame? It's pronounced terribly by me as tocha or tocha. And it was to distinguish between tea grown in different regions, so between the Honsha and the Hicha sort of regions. And you'd have this massive betting, that they'd bet over who would win and what would happen, and bet.
How do you spell tocha?
T-O with a straight line above it, C-H-A.
Good. Okay, that's for the transcript.
Yeah, it's all right. But yeah, they'd have these massive bets over who would host the competition, huge decorations, this massive thing. Food and sake and dancing, and it was this huge, extravagant, thing that would go on, and it was, morally outrageous is the term that I was reading. It's sort of this scandalous kind of parties and competitions that would go on. It was just a lot of the time where you see, ceramic paintings or ceramics or paintings of tea drinking during Ming. It was of these kind of things that were very, very passionate kind of artwork put into these tea competitions, and it was just this massive thing. I'm thinking, really, like tea competitions? That's just it. Kind of that it got very obviously, like all things that are originally scandalous and strange, and you can't do that. That's crazy. A century or two later, it starts to become part of the norm and turns into some of the the tea rooms and the tea ceremony. And
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking out in England.
Yeah.
Yep. Hundreds of years
yeah,
later.
it just
Yep.
nice, and just sort of blends perfectly into this formally accepted way of doing things that becomes the norm. And you think, no, this is of course the way we've always done it.
And again, you think, oh, it's England's doing it for the first time and doing it this nice and polite and proper way. And you're like, nope, as usual, China did it 300 years before that, and you're wrong.
Yeah. It was also an interesting bridging of Chinese and Japanese cultural differences, and sort of this combining factor, I guess. Both these cultures thoroughly enjoyed and embraced this leaf in a way that was something that could be be seen as a complementary fact between the two, despite every other.
And I think it's a big deal, and it kind of leads into our next section of, and we'll go into more detail later on as how Europe and their various groups of countries there got tea from China. But the key with China was they wanted to keep it all within China.
Yeah.
Tea was unique, however, in large part because the Chinese prevented the transfer of its seeds, plants, and knowledge to the West. Europeans were unable to transplant production to regions under their control until the early 19th century, when they stole it.
What?
And it took another half century to compete successfully with the Chinese at world markets. So I think it's a very interesting juxtaposition there, where you have Europe literally has to steal the tea, spend 50 years perfecting how to do it, and then compete with it. Meanwhile, you have this nice, neighboring partnership here between China and Japan, creating new ways of doing tea and working together.
Yeah, where Japan, what did you say, back in the 800s, 900s, had some seeds that they brought across, planted it, and have spent centuries developing their own similar but unique ways of doing things. Their own tea ceremonies, which, Japanese tea ceremonies are just, they blow my mind. They, like everything, they go so over the top with everything. And they're again, doing some more reading there, you get the name, and again I'm going to butcher it, so apologies. Was Rikyu, who was one of the tea masters to both. Well, again, ignore my pronunciations, but to both Daimyo Oda Nobunaga and Toyoto Hideyoshi, and lived during this massive political and social upheaval during the Sengoku period. He was this, Rikyu was this part of this wealthy merchant class sort of family. And he was part of this group that was this cultural and economic force to change culture generally, but it also had this massive impact on tea culture. And it's where bringing out this whole tea ceremony started to become this thing that you did in politics, and this thing you did as part of being enacting diplomatic ritual. Part of that was a tea ceremony, which, as you said, was something that that the British developed, and this is unique to us centuries later. But no, this is something that we have been doing for centuries, and it's come about centuries beforehand from again, similar story to England and to European nations, where it was a method of bringing cultural change and social change and class change, and you had that same thing happen centuries beforehand on the other side of the world, for completely different reasons but very similar outcomes. That tea is this great unifier.
And I think it makes sense that there's such a ritual to it. I mean, it's spiritual. It's a lot of different things. There's a religion part of it too for a lot of them, and that because they've been doing it for 500 years, compared to Europe getting tea in the mid 19th century and only having it for a couple hundred years comparatively.
So we're talking a little bit about censure. I found it was really interesting doing some more reading through that. The whole point, the whole method of steeping the loose tea leaf and doing this boiled tea censure sort of feel, was again a century, 150 years before England, before European nations sort of started to see it. So, we think when you look back at history and you see these years, oh yeah, that was 100 years later, this happened. I always I've got to stop falling into this trap of, oh, it was only 100 years, whatever. And you think, well, yep. What's happened in the last 100 years since 1921 through to now? Massive differences. And sure, we've had some accelerated change through to various industrial revolutions and world wars, but
yep.
I fail to appreciate that, yes, between the 16th and 17th centuries where, the trend of having bricked tea or powdered tea started to lose fashion, and, the whole idea of doing a boiled tea, a boiled leaf, in this water was the new way of doing it. That took place over the course of 150 years of change, and it is quite an eye opener to realize that that these things have been around for so long, despite all of this change and all of these things that have been going on in our own time. This process of fine tuning how they rolled the leaf, how they steam it, rolled it, dry it in the oven, and it wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a time consuming process that decades of research and mastering of these techniques went into.
Trial and error,
yeah. And it's where you get these tea masters coming from, where they would have teas named after them, and they would have methods of preparation named after them, simply based on the fact that, yes, I was the guy that spent 30 years developing how to do this. Respect my skills.
Most of my life doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be remembered for something.
No, and it's still apparently it still represents sencha as a method of drying and brewing tea in Japan. Still represents about 80% of their tea production to this day is this method, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that a little later, talking sort of 1800s to early 1900s, but as part of that industrial revolution was happening and the process of automation was becoming a thing, it was easy to automate. The process of steaming, rolling, drying, and getting it out and selling as a product, it was something that was easily able to be automated and turned into a machine-based manufacturing approach to making.
Ramped up.
Yeah. So it Japan, unlike China, doesn't have a lot of land. It doesn't have a lot of growing land, so they needed to be able to harvest and make and get a return on the process as a profit quickly and easily. And Japan, being the father of all automation and technology in that space, sort of embraced that process pretty well. And apparently is quite a huge aspect of the tea process now is automated and machine-based manufacturing processes that carries through to now, all computerized and automated.
So did you ever find out in your bit of research with sencha tea, with the addition of rice, whether that was an accidental happenstance that worked out or something that was intentionally tried and experimented with?
So apparently it was it's a different name to sencha. So when you add brown rice to it, it becomes you said it before, popcorn sort of in there, but popcorn tea is its colloquial name for it. So it's a roasted rice tea. So its name is, and pronunciation caveat here again, is Gen Maicha. So not matcha, but Genmaicha.
Oh yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Gen Maicha. So Japanese brine rice green tea. Try saying that 5 times fast. Is this green tea mixed with roasted popped brown rice. So it's designed there it's sometimes referred to colloquially as popcorn tea because a few of the grains of rice pop during the whole roasting process and resemble popcorn, which is it really does. You see pictures of it and you see it in yourself in your own tea. It looks like popcorn, but no, that is rice. It's sort of known as the people's tea, as the rice served as a filler and reduced the price of the tea. You fill it up with stuff that that sort of takes on the flavor of it, and all of a sudden you've got.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, it was sort of the thing where, as I said, rice is fairly flavorless in itself. So and was fairly highly produced, and still is today. So it's a relatively cheap filler product that you can throw into it, roast it through. Typically, most of it doesn't pop. It stays that shape and size. You can then brew it, and it still retains most of the flavor that you'd expect. It moved on to be the sort of tea that you would use because it would take on some, it's not as diet friendly a tea as normal because it does sort of absorb some of the sugars and the starches that you have in rice. It's not as low calorie, guys. Sorry to say that. That's the reason I've put weight on. I've been drinking too much genmocha.
Right. Your 1 calorie you're getting from your 5 cups of tea.
Exactly, as opposed to 0. On the flip side, it is a really, really good tea for if you're doing any fasting, because it does have an element of natural sugars and starches in there that have very small amounts of calories in there. Something is a good filler between meals. So you've sort of had your morning meal and you're rushing around, so that you just have a cup of this. So it's the sort of thing that you'd throw in your pack when you'd go for a travel from one city to another, as something to fill you between walks or between destinations. You'd use it for fasting, for religious purposes, or whatever those sort of situations. But this is where its taste is quite interesting, because you're roasting this rice, which does have the sugars and the starches in it. It tends to have that sort of malty, sort of warm and nutty flavor to it, as opposed to more of your traditional, earthy green tea tastes that we know and love. And it tends to go more of that light yellow sort of color, as opposed to more of the green yellow that we get. So more, it looks more like pee as opposed to baby vomit. So it's a bit of a mixed. There's the appetite going down.
Not a good scale.
The pee to baby vomit scale.
Unless you want to do that comparison.
Exactly.
Moving away from that, having tried, because I've tried Mike, because you sent me the GMC Centre with the rice in it, and then I've had this other Centre too, and now that I think back to it, yes, I could definitely tell different flavors, and that malty, starchy flavor in that was very different for tea, but also very enjoyable. Well, moving on to the powers of tea. We're going to talk a little bit again about what tea was supposed to do to you, to help you to improve your health. Long before food scientists discovered caffeine, early modern experts proposed that tea could cure many ailments, increase longevity, counter drunkenness, stimulate one's libido, and help one live a spiritual, intellectual, and productive life. Nearly everywhere tea was said to bring balance to the self and to society. Such philosophies originated in China and Japan and moved overland through Central Asia via maritime trade to port cities and hinterlands around the Indian and Atlantic Oceans. In Asia, the Near East, Europe, and North America, tea was a powerful medicine, a dangerous drug, a religion and artistic practice, a status symbol, an aspect of urban leisure, and a sign of respectability and virtue. Discuss. Mike, what do you have to say?
How was it a dangerous drug? That's what I want to know.
More than alcohol.
All those young'uns hopped up on tea.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, it might have been also that's part of the it's coming from Asia, so it can't be good because it's not from good white people tea or something. I don't know. Do you notice anything changing in yourself for the vast amounts of tea you've drunk?
Not really. Usually that I just need to get up at 1 a.m. to go to the loo. That's about it, really.
Well, Mike, have you got cancer?
Well, I certainly hope not.
Ah,
there you go. It's the tea, right? It's
Definitely.
That's it. Just straight up.
On the Zoom, he is on the Starship Enterprise. Where there are nacelles what's its drives, that have a lot of radioactivity. So that.
That's true. That's true.
Oh. And your daughter's piloting, apparently.
Yeah, I've just had a visit from my daughter. I'm sorry. Yeah, she's just stealing some paper out of the printer so she can draw a picture.
Does she need to engage the inertial dampeners? Is that what it is?
Yeah, she needs to realign the warp plasma conduit. Did I get that right? I think I got that right.
Hey, that worked. That sounded good.
I think so. Anyway, Tarran, where were you going with the cancer?
Well, so tea is one of the many natural high in antioxidant things you can consume healthily, and they say
and it tastes good too.
It does. When you throw it to Google, what's the benefits of tea? It always seems to be the one that pops up at the top. It's high antioxidant, and antioxidants help protect you against cancer. I could probably pretty safely say, anecdotally, sure, but I don't think, and I'm saying this without doing the research myself, so take it with a ton of salt. I don't know if there's been any scientific studies that do hard tests over time that show people who drink tea are X% less likely to contract cancer A, B, or C. I think it's just the association that tea is high in antioxidants, and antioxidants have been proven.
So I feel like that's actually put on some herbal tea boxes. May prevent cancer or whatever.
Yeah. So it's interesting though when you look at the different types of teas. You've got your whites, your greens, and your blacks that you have. They say white tea is potentially better for is potentially a good dental tea. Because white tea, being less processed, has a high source of fluoride, which, as we know, is good for teeth health.
I don't know that.
Catechins and tannins.
I wonder if it stains your teeth. Yeah.
Well, no, this is the thing, that it's got high amounts of catechins and different types of tannins that strengthen and fight plaque and make your teeth more resistant to acid and sugar. And because it is a lighter color, it doesn't stain.
Now, I know what a tannin is. What's a catechin? Did you say catechin?
Yeah, CA or catechin. So apologies for my terrible pronunciations again. CATECHIN. It's a type of phenolic compound very abundant in tea, berry, and cocoa, which are ascribed to be a potent antioxidant.
Oh, cool.
Especially to EGCG3 apparently is the yep.
Okay, yeah, that one. Right. So this was just white tea that cleans your teeth. So you're saying if I just drink white tea, I never have to brush my teeth again?
Yeah, and apparently you'll be immune to cancer. So, but you need to mix it up with your green tea, because that is apparently is better for heart health because of the way they roast it there is or make it there. It's higher in flavonoids, which are apparently all about heart health and bad cholesterol reducing and blood clot reducing. So it's helps sort of lower blood pressure and those sort of things. So you need to have a mix of green and white tea, but then you need to also have some black tea, because black tea's got your caffeine in it as opposed to your green and your white, which are much lower in caffeine, and that helps inflammation and support healthy immune function.
So what you're saying is we should drink lots of different kinds of tea.
Exactly. Just non-stop tea.
All right, good.
Caveats here. They do say, there are some teas that should be avoided. And I think this is all very common sense, but we know common sense is not common.
That's why we're here, to educate.
There are a range of detox teas out there. Some of them are on the shelf, and when you read the ingredients, they're just herbal tisanes. So they're not, then they're just tisanes. So, check the ingredients and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't take our advice. We're not medical practitioners, et cetera, et cetera. But some of these detox teas are pretty much tea with laxatives built in to help you lose weight quickly. And yes, you'll probably lose weight quickly.
Is that for real? Do they advertise that? Or
I don't know, but apparently it's the thing.
Imagine if you just brewed yourself a big jug of it to drink throughout the day and you didn't realize. Oh, wow.
You'd lose weight.
Going on a long flight.
I'm going to take this tea with me, yeah. They also suggest being aware of things like your matcha lattes, as while they can appear to be healthy, being...
they're full of sugar.
Yeah, quite a lot of them are.
Yeah, you can taste it.
So don't have 3 of those a day then.
No.
The suggestion as well is things like certain iced teas and bubble teas are also not, despite the fact they may have tea in the name and they may have some tea in them, they may also have quite a lot of sugar. And
They're tea shakes.
yeah, pretty much. And there's also the lovely caveat that while tisanes are awesome, and I am a huge advocate for them for various reasons, from sleep to just feeling good and being tasty.
You should have a T-shirt, Tarran, that says, "I put the tisane in tea."
Oh, I like it. I like that. All right, I'll do some designs up. I might, I might put a few designs up and throw them up on Twitter and see which one people like. Maybe get a bit of a vote going and see what we can pick up, and then throw something up on TeePublic or something like that. But they do say, look, obviously with tisanes, there's stuff in them that you might not be aware of. So read the ingredients, because you might find you're actually allergic to this fruit or spice or nut or something, and that would not be healthy for you. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Being hospitalized for an allergy.
So check if it's a tisane and read the ingredients.
Yeah, drink tea and you'll have good teeth, good heart health, and you'll never get inflamed.
So the opposite of alcohol.
Well, they do say it's good. It's an it sort of helps you get cures for hangovers, right? So maybe it is.
Have you ever heard anything? I can't remember. I don't think I've put this up on an episode previously, but I remember hearing before, I think it's an urban legend or whatever, something about the effect of most things, if you have too much of it, it'll eventually be bad for you. But I heard with tea, you just keep drinking it and it continues to be more beneficial for you.
Yeah, I'd always thought that like things that diuretics and things like that, if you drank too much, it wouldn't be good for your kidneys. But I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see the science on how much tea you would need to drink for it to start to have an impact on your kidney or liver or something like that in a negative way.
Unfortunately, what I'm thinking about is this fraternity. I can't remember where it was, where they did the hazing thing, and this kid drank such an amount of water. I can't remember if he died or almost died from drinking too much water because it was too much ingested.
It sort of ends up drowning your kidneys or something.
But where you would think water is just good for you, they can always have too much.
No, I just did a quick Google for like negative health effects, and yeah, apparently if you drink a lot of tea, it can like mess around with your iron absorption. The caffeine can give you anxiety and poor sleep. So they say exceeding a liter of tea per day.
Oh no!
Yeah, every day. That's a lot of tea.
Is it?
Well, I mean, I don't know. How many cups do you have? I only have 1 or 2.
I was going to say 5 mugs worth.
We're worried for your health now.
Sometimes I just have tea days. Usually on my days off when I'm not working, because I can't have tea at work, so I have lots of tea when I'm home.
Well, there you go. So it's not every day of the year.
Yeah, it does say here that tea has been linked to numerous health benefits, including reduced inflammation and all the stuff you spoke about before. So it says here, and to quote, this is healthline.com. I have no idea whether they're a reputable source of information, so take this with several pinches of salt. But it says here most people can drink 3 to 4 cups. That's 710 to 950 milliliters of tea daily without adverse effects. But some may experience side effects at lower doses.
750, so that's 3/4 of a liter.
950.
But you said 750. Did you first?
710 to 950, right? So it says here most of the side effects are related to caffeine and tannin. So I mean, I guess if you're sensitive to caffeine and tannins, then drink less tea. You probably already do anyway.
Well, like tannins, for example, if I have like a heavy black tea with a lot of tannin in it and nothing to eat, in the morning, first thing, I get nausea and my stomach isn't happy with it. I have to have something in my stomach food-wise before I can drink a heavy tea.
No, I know what you mean.
As you said, your body tells you when you need to change things up, right?
And I felt crap doing that, so I never do it, and I've never done it again. I'm always careful.
I think it's always a good idea. I've heard it in a podcast years ago that, there was someone that was quite fit and healthy, someone that I inspire to be like, being the, very unfit and unhealthy person I am. they say one of the first things they do when they get up in the morning is drink a big glass of water to, kickstart the body. And I've heard elsewhere that that's a good idea. So I try not to make a coffee or a tea. The first drink of the day, I always try and drink a water. So, yeah.
Not me. So it's coffee or tea every morning. You are supposed to drink 4 liters a day, I think they say, is the recommended amount of water. And I do, if I think now to what I've had heavy tea days where I've drunk a large mug, I think my kidneys do ache a bit and complain with all the bathroom trips and stuff, like you're overworking us. Go easy on the tea.
Maybe you need like a stronger flavored tea that you can drink weaker, so there's the water to tea content. I don't know whether that's, a thing.
And it's usually, I think, black teas I'm doing that way too. Maybe green teas will have a different effect too.
Well, I mean, if you're drinking more of your green tea, Alex, you're just going to have better heart health. So that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, on to the history of Chinese tea. Leaf teas slowly replaced cake and powdered varieties, and these would become the primary teas of commerce. Green tea was the earliest leaf tea to be used, but in the 16th century, fermented black teas became popular. They were chiefly Souchong, Kongu, and Bohea, a bastardized European term for tea from the Wuyi Mountains. Black teas were fermented before roasting, whereas green teas were roasted immediately to prevent fermentation. After roasting, all leaves were rolled by hand to extract their juice, and quality teas such as Souchong could go through this process up to 4 times. Congo was made from thinner leaves and was roasted and rolled fewer times. The best teas were then dried over a slow-burning fire, and the very finest were then put through a sieve to discard any burnt or coarse leaves. In the 18th century, oolong, a semi-fermented tea that originated in South Fujian, was a very profitable cash crop in Formosa, and pekoe became especially popular in the export trade to Russia. During this time, consumption and production altered considerably. Both leaf and cake tea had typically been powdered into a powder and placed in a warm, shallow bowl to which hot water was added and the drink frothed with a bamboo whisk. Zhu Yuanzhang, the first Ming emperor, Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, demanded that whole leaf teas be used as tribute instead of labor-intensive cake tea. Leaf teas brewed in teapots thus grew in popularity. There I thought it was kind of interesting that it said, talking a little bit with the matcha thing, where they were using water, but they whisked it up again, frothed it up there. So you have a similar thing.
You still have your frother. I guess when your emperor says, "Hey, drink it in a teapot," you drink it in a teapot, right?
You do it.
Yeah, you don't want to get beheaded.
And there are some very, very beautiful and different teapots around the world that are gorgeous to behold.
Oh, there definitely are. I was going to say a little while back when we were talking around some of the tea ceremony side of things. My auntie over in Melbourne, she collects teapots.
Auntie? Oh, right.
Auntie, yes. She has a pretty impressive collection. I'll see if I can get a photo and I'll post it up on Twitter. Yeah, she's got quite an impressive collection, but a lot of them are a more modern sort of, modern European style teapots. But I have to say I am quite inclined to. No, I quite enjoy the traditional stone made, handmade teaware. In fact, Mike, I think I bought you a cup and saucer, a handmade cup and saucer a while back.
You did. My tea this morning was brewed in it. Thank you.
I also need to. There's a video I know I shared with you guys. Again, I think it was last year sometime that my wife had found of. It was a person in China showing the different kinds of teapots and how good they are at pouring. And you can tell how good a teapot is by pouring the tea into the cup from a height and how much it splashes. And the better the teapot, the less splash you get out.
Oh, I know the physics
I think
behind
I linked
that.
it on our Discord, so I can dig that out.
That's called laminar flow.
Fun.
If anyone is interested.
Speak some more, Mike. Come on, talk a bit, Mike.
It's just a way. It's like fluid dynamics. So How do I explain it? It basically reduces turbulence inside the moving fluid so that all of the particles of the fluid are moving in exactly the same direction. So if you have very good laminar flow, you'll get very little, splashing and turbulence.
That's cool.
Google it.
So what about, how do you get good laminar flow in your vein?
Well, so normally if you want to make laminar flow, you, instead of having like, I should preface this by saying I never finished this course at university, right? Basically, instead of having like one large pipe, you would have lots of little pipes. So I have no idea how they do that in a teapot. Maybe the length of the pipe or the smoothness of the walls or something makes a difference. I don't understand, any of the physics other than what I just said before.
I've seen, I think, some teapots where you have the spout, and then kind of towards the bottom of the spout, before you get to the full teapot, it'll be almost like a sieve thing where you have like 10 or 5 smaller holes that let the flow through. I wonder if that's got anything to do with it.
That could have something to do with it.
Yeah, I always thought that was just to keep the leaves from pouring out, but absolutely, that sounds.
I just had a quick search on YouTube. There's like so many videos on laminar flow, so our visitors could go and have a look at that if they want to learn more.
And is it laminar or lamin?
It's laminar, Laminar.
We've talked a bit about about the history there and sort of the adoption in Japan and its growth and popularity of moving to teapots in China itself. But I don't think I can go through this episode without talking about Mulan as a just that one scene, and I'm talking cartoon Mulan, not live action, and I haven't seen it, and I have no idea if they recreate the scene in the live action in any way, shape, or form. But talking original Disney Mulan cartoon here, where she goes into the matchmaker's den, her house, to prove herself to potential future in-laws and be given a husband and all the associated everything that would happen on the back of that. And one of the tasks she needs to complete is the tea ceremony, and obviously she completely and utterly stuffs it up with the cricket that jumps around and causes chaos and in a humorous way, as you see with the kids, and they sit there and giggle away at it, which is always fun to watch. But even just in that cartoon, which is done as a joke and bit of a humorous scene, the process they go through, even in the cartoon, is insanely complicated and over the top. And you can see her remembering, or trying to remember with the notes that she writes on her hand, all the steps involved and all the process and how she goes about doing, each element of that tea ceremony, just to be able to prove that she can pour a cup of tea, something we take, for granted today, that it's just, I'm going to go make myself a cuppa. Compared to what was this massively ritualistic process.
Sacred art, yeah.
I've never seen Mulan. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, you have kids. Go watch it.
I know. I'll have to watch it. I have attended a wedding once that was one party of the wedding was Chinese, and as part of their wedding, they had a traditional Chinese tea ceremony.
Oh wow!
It was restricted to family only, so I sort of had to watch like over the top of a bunch of people. But yeah, it looked very serious, shall we say? So yeah, I guess that's just how they are.
I think it's really cool. I gotta say, like, it's sad that
it is cool.
In our Western culture, we don't have that in some way. It's a beautiful thing that's been because it's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, that it's become such a part of culture and life. And tea is just as big of a thing in Western world, and yet we don't have anything like that. All right, let's not end on a downer. Now we're going to do the round of what do you prefer, green or black tea?
I can't answer that because I think they both have their merits. I drink more black tea than green tea purely out of the fact that we always tend to have more black tea in house. And growing up, my parents didn't ever drink green tea. I didn't even know it was a thing until I was a bit older. And yeah, so most of it is black tea just because of that. But I love them both equally, and yeah, they both have their merits. So yeah, I'm going to be a fence sitter, be that annoying guy that sits on the fence and doesn't really have an opinion one way or the other.
I can also remember, I'm pretty sure the first time I ever had any green tea, and it was from when my dad in the 80s, it must have been, when he was doing business trips to Asia. I think it was when he went to Bangkok, and he came back and he had this little set of 6 little tins of various Chinese teas, I would guess oolong and just different things like that, and just trying different ones then, however young I was, and thinking how interesting the flavors were.
I think I probably agree with Mike in some ways that, you know, growing up, green tea was not a thing that we had. It wasn't something that we were exposed to. And I probably through to this day don't drink anywhere near as much, just pound for pound quarter sort of quantity of green tea as I do black. So definitely we'll have to say black, but I think even in saying that, I would prefer some sort of blended black to a straight, you know, English breakfast or you know, insert unflavored, unblended tea here. I think, yeah, at the moment one of my go-tos is a Lady Grey kind of blend where, you know, simply for the flavors of it, it's pleasant, it's nice, it's got some difference to it.
And if you need more info on that, check I think it was our second episode. We went into detail with that.
Yeah, I did. And I'm going to add that one to the reviews because I was having a cup of that the other day and thought, yeah, I need to review this because I'm really enjoying it before it runs out.
That was fascinating with the water and everything. Yep.
Yeah. But when I've gone and, you know, sort of ordered samples and taster sets from people, you know, they're easily 70% green teas. You know, if you sort of order a generic sample set from a company, it tends to be, or I've found that they tend to be more heavily slanted towards green tea varieties than your black tea varieties. So I've definitely had a lot more exposure to them in the last few years, and they're growing on me. I'm still not I still struggle to sit down and just chow down on a cup of green tea as I would a black tea. And context is everything. You know, when we go out and have a meal at a Chinese restaurant, I'll absolutely have a cup of, or we'll get a pot of a green jasmine tea. And gladly have that as my drink during dinner. That's just what you have. And even this morning having the white peony, it's not technically a green tea, it's a white tea, but it's there, and I enjoyed that quite a lot as it was. So I think I will go with saying if it's a straight black or green or white tea, I would probably put them on equal balance. I'd happily prefer either or. If it's a flavor, if it's got something else to it, it's a black tea. They tend to for me go better with those flavors. Yeah.
And I feel like the obvious caveat we should make here that probably everyone gets is, as 3 white Western guys, we're probably more prone than, as most people are, white Western people are, to just having black teas over green teas. And I feel if you talk to Asian people, they'd be more likely to have green teas, I feel, over black teas likely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be the opposite story. I grew up with green tea every day, and I've only had my first cup of black tea last week, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good friends from Malaysia and Singapore. Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, I should say, where every time we have them over for dinner and we ask them, do you want a cup of tea? They always, without fail, have a green tea, and usually they request like a green tea with ginger or a green tea with lemongrass. So I don't know whether that's like a traditional thing for like an aperitif, after dinner that you would have.
Sounds good to me.
But yeah, they have that almost every time, to the point where we have like a tin of it in the kitchen ready to go for when they come over. So yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah, I just feel as I've gotten older, I would do way more. I mean, again, mostly black, but I do a lot more of just green tea in general now, and having more different green teas. And just, again, what mood are you in for? I want a heavy, strong black tea, or no, I want something lighter. I'm going to go for one of my greens I've got and just enjoy it just as much. We do have a nice tradition actually here where if we're usually in San Francisco, if we go to Golden Gate Park, or there's a big museum there, the Academy of Sciences, one thing we always do at the end of the day is they have wonderful, huge Japanese gardens there. And so we do the walk around that. And then they have a little tea restaurant place there too. So we always get and have jasmine tea and these little biscuits and crunchies and things and sit there and watch the koi and everything, which is a really nice little memory and pastime. So when you guys come over here, we'll have to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
It is. Especially if you do it in spring, like now, where everything is just blossoming and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah. No, that sounds pretty amazing.
All right. Well, now we move on to our final segment. I think it is. Yeah. Tea recommendations.
I think I'm going to have to go with, and I've only got one today, but it's going to have to be what I've been drinking through this episode, which is this the Seven Seas organic white peony tea. So it's from the Seven Seas Tea Company, which is down in, they say Margaret River, but Cowarumup is the town they're in. And yes, it's spelt C-O-W, Aramup, and their entire town is focused on cows.
It is. Yeah, there's cows everywhere, like metal cows. Every shop is named after cows. The next time either of us drove through.
But yeah, it's a beautiful town.
Sounds like Sonoma County here, where we have all the milk production. So cows are everywhere. And crazy segue. Okay, so our company the local company is Clover Company, and they have these billboards that they've had for decades, and they're always puns. So you could actually buy a book of them now too. They're really wonderful. Anyway, continue.
So it's a beautiful town, and this shop is located sort of along the main street, in between a chocolate shop that they share an internal doorway with, and they do a whole bunch of teas, a whole bunch of tea accessories, so pots and some handcrafted mugs and all sorts of things. But they also have this spice market in there as well, where they have sort of a range of spices that you can bring your own containers in and fill them up, and it's really nice, beautiful little shop. And the first time I went in there, I unfortunately probably lost her probably about half an hour of business, because I pretty much said, hey, can I have a sample set of every single tea that you do? So she diligently went out the back and made me a sample of almost every single tea that they did. So it gave me a sample pack of it. So I've got a whole bunch of that. I did pay for them, so it didn't completely bankrupt her, but obviously a sample piece that she had to hand fill was.
That was really good of her.
And you're going to plug them on this episode and this show too, aren't you? So they'll get lots of coverage. And we'll definitely be sure to link them in the show notes.
It was. They're a really, really nice place. So highly encourage you, if you're ever down this way, go through, grab a cup of tea, say hi, and then grab some chocolate next door as well. And then pop back, grab some cinnamon from the spice market and add that into your hot chocolate. Yeah.
And then say, remember that guy Tarran who made you do all that work?
It's I know I mentioned it before, but it's an organic white peony with a mellow, flowery taste. Only the bud and the first two leaves are taken to make the white tea, or to make this particular white tea. And with less processing than the rest, they hold on to a lot of the antioxidants. Hence why white tea is purported to have many health benefits over and above the other teas, including dental health. So but it's very nice. Its flavor is quite subtle, and very very flowery, and a little earthy as well in its flavors.
All right, Mike, what you got?
Good recommendation.
Thanks.
You know what? I want everyone listening, you, if you can hear me now and you're listening to this, I'm talking directly to you. Go and get yourself a green tea matcha latte. I think everyone should give it a go and report back. Send us a tweet.
Tarran, stop shaking your head.
I'm nodding. Sorry, I'm nodding away. Nod. I like that. I like the send us a tweet on it and let us know what you think of a green tea matcha latte, and whether or not it's got any added sugars in it.
Yeah, whether they serve it to you sweet or whether you have to sweeten it yourself, because like I say, everyone I've ever had has been served quite sweet. I wouldn't mind trying it unsweetened. Let us know. Send us a tweet. So
tweet that's at the Teacast, or you can also email us. I think I still got the email account, which is while there is tea, there is hope @gmail.com. And then when we eventually do our matcha episode, we can mention those.
Yeah, we can give you a shout out. At I like tea 420 says, they like matcha.
All right, is that it, Mike?
That's my recommendation. Take it or leave it.
So I'm going back with this one too. I tried a few more, or at least one of the. This was the simple loose leaf kind of subscription I was on for a few months, and then realized I wasn't getting through enough tea because I needed to save them up for the episodes, and just stopped it. But fortunately, I've got a nice backlog of going through. So I did actually try their simple chai, and I had this after I tried the Bunker Galab tea chai, which is just changed my whole view on chai, and I love it. And that's what you guys are eventually going to try that you've got that I sent you. So I tried this chai, and actually I specifically tried it thinking in mind of how it was different from the bunker chai, and it wasn't as good as that. And if I hadn't had that bunker chai, I probably would have thought this was pretty good because it did what I expected chai to do. It wasn't that spicy at all, but it had some of the notes I could pick up that I expect from chai. But it wasn't anywhere near as pure as the ones with the bunker chai, where I could pick up all the different little flavors and the notes in it that I really enjoyed. So I recommend bunker chai once again over other chais. But the actual one I'm recommending is the one I tried, which I did enjoy, which is a black tea called Simple Yunnan. An elegant and straightforward Chinese black tea are simple Yunnan brews with a crisp, clean scent overlaid with hints of honey and sweet nuts. A classic and simple Yunnan that is robust and sturdy enough to be an everyday drinking tea that can stand up to longer brew times or hotter waters without diminishing the pleasure of the tea. Simple Yunnan is best served hot and can be enhanced with a splash of milk, but if you want to serve it cold, add some citrus or tart fruits to it to give it more complexity. I remember there was one other black tea from the simple loose leaf I tried that I found boring and didn't really like, whereas this one was really smooth and just had more depth and interesting flavors to it. I was able to pick up that kind of honey smoothness to it that I didn't pick up with any of the other black tea stuff. So Simple Yunnan is my recommendation. And that about brings us to the end of the episode. Do you guys have any final words, thoughts, proclamations? Is that cricket?
Yeah.
Cricket I was hearing? Tarran, add that in post.
Yeah. I think I might just chirp, chirp, chirp and lead out to music and fade into end out credit.
Well, we covered a lot in this episode, so I think we're spent. Our tea is drunk.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Well and truly.
A lot of good stuff. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode, let us know. Again, hit us on Twitter at the TCast or email us at whiletheristtea.gmail.com and let us know what you thought. And without further ado, we'll be back next month with a whole new tea episode. Goodbye, guys.
See you later.
See you later. It was lovely to talk to you all.